Hi everyone, welcome to Clo Knits, where today we're going to talk about 5 items that are absolutely necessary to my knitting life. Might not be for you, but it is for me, and I hope you learn a little something about tools that might be useful for you. So let's start. I do like knitting as a job. That's what I do. I film tutorials, I teach lessons, I knit, sample knit for others sometimes, and I've been knitting for a very long time. I have quite a substantial stash of yarn. And so those tools are for me things that make my life easier on a daily basis. Not all of them are used daily, but some are. So when you're considering if it's something that might be good for you, consider how much time it could save you, or hassle or headache or things like that. But also consider that I use most tools more than the average person, let's say. So first things first, this is my number one. If I was stranded on a desert island and I had yarn and needles, I could be happy, right? But I would miss this one the most first. And that is my amazing Swift. So a Swift to me is absolutely necessary because I buy yarn in skeins most of the time, and I had the unfortunate situation where I had to wind skeins by hand that ended up a big tangled mess. And this is just making my life so much easier. As you can tell, mine is a Amish style Swift. I didn't choose this Swift. Actually, this was a gift from my husband when I turned, I think, 28. And I'm actually really happy that it is the one that he bought me for multiple reasons. One, it is super easy to take apart and put together. So this Swift is just sitting most of the time next to my couch in a little basket. And I say super easy, and then I'm with one hand, it's difficult. So I can do this to it, and I put all of these things in the little basket next to my couch, so it takes up no space at all, and then I can set it up wherever I want, whenever I want. Because right now I don't have a dedicated space to wind yarn. I will eventually, so I will be able to leave it maybe on the table, but maybe I'll want to put it away sometimes. So an umbrella Swift are the ones that you have to tie to a table and then you kind of prop it up and everything. Those are the ones we see most of the time, but this one to me is great. I really love it. It's Chiaogu, and there's no mechanism that could potentially break. So it's all pieces of wood that are just stuck one in the other. So literally, it is almost unbreakable, and I know I will have it for the rest of my life. So Swift, number one, my absolute desert island item that I cannot live without. The second one goes hand in hand with the Swift, so you might know already what it is. I will say before I show it that mine is particularly fancy. And the reason I have a particularly fancy winder is because I need it. I use it all the time. I used to have a cheaper plastic hand cranked winder, and it was fine. I liked it. There was no problem with it, but it was getting old. And yes, the plastic cracked in a few places. I used it probably for 10 years very regularly without a problem, but I decided to give myself a little extra gift recently, where last year I purchased this winder, which is, as you can tell here, an electric winder. It is called the Caker from Romarin, Montreal. So Romarin is located in Montreal. They make the Caker. They make also the hanker, I believe is what it's called, to make hanks. If you are a dyeing business, you know how it's called the twister. It's the twister in order to twist hanks. So it's all about streamlining things that are sometimes strenuous or take a long time and have to be done by hand. This one, I plug it in, I'll show you a video. I took a little video of my setup on how I wind my cakes. And this one makes the most beautiful cakes. It is so easy. So when I have multiple hanks to do or skeins to do, it's just perfect. I really love it. So this one, like I said, it is expensive. You don't need this. But if you do want it, it's absolutely worth the money, in my opinion. So I'm saving the time, that I would spend cranking by hand. I can, be reading my pattern. I can set up other things. I can prepare the other skeins to put on my Swift, etc. And it makes it all worth it. Number three is something that you might not think about as being necessary. The reason it is for me is I have quite a bit of yarn in my house, and I hate leaving leftover yarns to kind of just sit there. So often I will have quite big leftovers, and I want to know how much I have in order to be able to knit with it some more. So my favorite tool for that is a scale. This is my kitchen scale. It's a very classic kitchen scale. It is not super fancy. Any kitchen scale will do. Mine does grams and ounces. I wish it went more like grams with like more milligrams, but maybe one day I'll get a special, I think like a coffee scale could be good for that. The one that roasters use, because it goes to the milligrams. I'll think about that. But my kitchen scale has been doing me good for years and years and years. So when I'm done knitting a project, sometimes I'd like to know how much it weighs, the actual project, so I can put my sweater on the scale and know how much my item weighs. And by knowing how much it weighs, I know how much yarn I used. And then I can compare to what the pattern says or to other sweaters that I have, etc. But mostly when it's time to knit something, I want to know how much yarn I have in order to know if I can finish the project. I'd rather play yarn chicken than buy way too much. So sometimes I end up losing at yarn chicken, but at least most of the time I can weigh my yarn, calculate the meterage or the yardage, Canadian, the meterage I have, and have a pretty good idea if I'll be able to finish that project with that yarn. So absolutely necessary in my world, in my opinion. You might have a different opinion, but also kitchen scales are absolutely necessary in the kitchen. So you should have one, right? You can use it for both. I mean, I don't know why in America, in the North American area, we have so many recipes that are put in like cups and those measurements, because cooking with a scale is so much easier. When I find recipes that states the weight of whatever you have to put in the recipe, I'm like, because you put your thing on and you just add your things one at a time until you don't have to have measuring stuff everywhere, right? Right. Okay, I digress. That was something else. But absolutely necessary kitchen scale. Okay. Then this is a not absolutely necessary, but will make your life nicer. That is the knitting barber cords, the TKB for short. And those are little things like this. This one has just one long one in its package, but it's because the other two are already on projects. Proof that I actually use them. So there's one 150 centimeter cord and two 75 centimeter cords. You can choose your color. They're super cute. And I use it mostly for sweater knitting. And it is to put your project on hold, or to make sure that when you try your project, the stitches don't go flying off the needles everywhere. So if you are like me and you knit sweaters top down, you like to try your sweater as you go. If you don't, I recommend you do, because then you'll know before you're done if the sweater actually fits you. So what happens is with the TKB, you can then Oh, my daughter's back from school because she's not feeling good, so I'm going to finish this video quickly, but please try and not mind too much the coughing in the background. So you put the knitting barber cord on the needle, and then you can just swoop, 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 and put all your stitches on hold nicely and delicately. You can put some of them only, and then you can, let's imagine that I had to put this over my shoulders, it would stretch and you would be scared to pop out stitches, but not this way, because you can then stretch it and it's just gonna keep going on this cable. So then you can try your knits much easier. And now my dog is eating, so you're gonna hear more than just my child's coughing. You're gonna hear my dog chewing. ASMR for you. And then you gonna come say hi. Okay, you go back, go in the living room, please. So once you're done trying your garment and you take it back, you want to keep knitting, you just have to push all your stitches back onto your needle. You can pull a little bit on the barber cord, but not too much so it doesn't pop off the needle, and whoop, you take it off and you're back on track. So it's much faster than to have, when you have, I used to have to just put half of my my stitches on another circular needle. So I would have half, let's say the front half hanging on a circular needle, and then the back half on the other circular needle. Then I would try it on, and when I take it off, I retransferred the stitches, but it was a pain in the butt. And it made me want to not try my sweater, not like too often, whereas this makes it so when it's time to try on my sweater, I'm not put off by the fact having to put my stitches on a different something to hold it. Also, it's really fun for the sleeves because you put the stitches on these, and then when it's time to pick up your stitches, you just have to plug your needle and then just put your thing through. It's a little bit easier than having to pick up every single stitch from just a piece of yarn, because when you put just a piece of yarn around the stitches kind of sometimes get smaller, and then it's a little bit more difficult to go around and fix. So for me, this is absolutely a plus, not necessary, but a plus. And then the fifth item that I absolutely love and adore and use all the time is my Gleaner. So the Gleaner is a perfect little tool to depill everything. So I used it on this sweater to make the French video, the French version of this video. So it has, fluff from this sweater, but Gleaner looks like this, and it has one side that is meant to depill, so it has this pumice stone type thing, and there's 3 different levels of coarseness for different types of garments. So if you're having something very, very delicate versus something more, with big pills, you can change the top like this. It just pops off, and then there's 2 other ones, and it tells you in the instruction which one is meant for which. And you just pop it back on. And then, let me see, I depilled this one recently, but normally you lay it flat. You don't do it directly on your body, but why not? And then, would you look at that? This sweater is made out of a wool and yak, and the yak is a very short fiber, so it has a tendency to pill. But with the Gleaner, I can just depill it pretty easily. You could obviously use it for anything that's not a knitted item in your house as well. If you have a couch that pills, if you have anything that pills, you can use the Gleaner. And then it also has this, little fabric catch, like the fabric pet hair catcher thing. So if you have pet hair, you can just go, like this before going out of the house. I do have a white dog, and then it catches, you know, all the little pet hair. So Gleaner is a beautiful tool. I absolutely love it. Again, it's a tool that is super well made, that is never gonna leave me. I am very much a person that loves buying things that will last. So, you know, yes. I know that a lot of people use those little battery powered depilling, you know, razors, but I don't know. We used to have one in my house when I was a child, and I feel like that's one of the things where when the batteries go off, like the batteries don't work anymore, then you have to find other batteries. It sucks. And then the razor inside the blades can dull with time. And if you don't do it correctly, maybe I would be scared of cutting some fibers in my sweater, whereas this is just scraping the surface and taking off the loose little fibers that are creating the big, you know, pill. So this is yes for me, and it comes in this little baggie. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but you know, one of the very big pros of this for me too, is it comes in a little tin, and having things come in their own carrying cases is absolutely a must for me, or else I'm gonna lose some pieces. So this is in its bag, and it stays in my bedroom, and when I wash some sweaters, I just depil them after, sometimes when I feel like it. And this, yeah, whenever I use them, I put them back in its tin, and that is that. I have an honorable mention because I use it all the time, and you know, obviously I have project bags, and I have, you know, cases for my needles and things like that. But one thing I do really love that once I bought it, I wondered why I hadn't bought it before, is a little bag dedicated to my notions and my little bits and bobs that don't fit anywhere. So this is a little notions pouch from Jezabel B. It is very cute and very simple. It is a big Velcro, and then you open it up like this, and then it stays next to you when you're working like that. And so when I have to get my scissors, little scissors, when I have to get a little piece of yarn that I need to maybe do a provisional cast on, when I need my, this one has a, this thing has a magnet, so it just attracts everything. But when I have to get my darning needles or finishing needles, they're all in here in this little pouch that has a magnet. And then I have a bunch of, you know, stitch markers, obviously, are all jumbled up in here. A bunch of things. I have a sticker. I have my cable needles. So everything's kind of hanging out in here. And so whenever I need notions, this is what is coming with me in my project bag. And it's small, and it closes with Velcro, and it's cute. Here we go. And it's made locally by Jezabel B, who is one of my favorite maker. Here we go. So that's my honorable mention right there. Those things I literally use not every day. Like, I don't use my winder every day, because when I try and wind stuff, I try and do it all at once. So if I have 5 skeins to wind, I'll do it at once, and not one and a knit and then one and a knit. But I do use these things weekly for sure, and some daily. So those are my absolute favorite need to have knitting tools that are not needles or, you know, yarn. So hopefully you discovered a few things from this video. If you have tools that you absolutely love and adore in your stuff, just let me know about them. I'd love to know what you use in your daily making, and I will see you next time. Bye. Happy knitting.